The cold metal walls of the abandoned mining facility echoed with a distant mechanical hum. Kai Park moved silently, his tactical gear blending with the shadows. His eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the dark corridors lined with rusted processing, equipment and forgotten cargo containers. Something caught his attention, a faint whimper. Most soldiers would have ignored it, but Kai was different. He had seen too much in his years of interstellar service to dismiss even the smallest sound of distress. As he approached, the whimper became clearer. Tucked behind, a massive storage unit chained and barely conscious was a young alien female. Her skin was a pale blue-gray, marked with bruises and signs of harsh treatment. Thin chains dug into her wrists and ankles, restricting her movement. Kai had seen slave trafficking operations before, but this was different. The girl looked so young, so vulnerable. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes barely open. She wore tattered clothing that suggested weeks, maybe months of captivity. He approached slowly, knowing any sudden movement might startle her. His hand hovered near his weapon, not because he felt threatened, but because he knew the facility might not be empty. Slave traders were dangerous and rarely worked alone. "I'm not going to hurt you," Kai said softly, switching his communication device to universal translation mode. The alien girl's eyes flickered with a mix of fear and hope. She didn't speak, but her gaze told a story of survival. Kai could see intelligence behind her pain. She was sizing him up, trying to understand if this human was another threat or something different. He knelt down, carefully reaching for the electronic lock on her chains. His fingers moved with precision, years of military training helping him navigate the complex mechanism. With a soft click, the chains fell away. The girl didn't move immediately. She was too weak, too scared. Kai noticed she had multiple signs of malnourishment. Her body was thin, her muscles atrophied from prolonged imprisonment. Suddenly, voices echoed from a distant corridor. Slave traders. Kai knew he had moments to act. He scooped the alien girl into his arms, surprised by how light she was. Her body was cold, almost lifeless. "Stay quiet," he whispered, though he wasn't sure she understood. The facility's alarm system was old but functional. As Kai moved, metal creaked under his boots. He could hear heavy footsteps approaching, at least 3 different sets of boots. Possibly more. One wrong move would mean capture or death. Using the shadows and his advanced military training, Kai navigated through a maze of corridors. The alien girl remained silent, her eyes now fully open but filled with a strange mix of terror and curiosity. The first group of slave traders passed just meters away, large, muscular creatures with multiple arms and armor that suggested they were used to violent confrontations. Kai pressed himself and the girl against a cold metal wall, controlling his breathing. Minutes felt like hours. When he finally reached the facility's outer section, he could see his transport vessel. Close, but not close enough. The landing zone was exposed and any movement would attract attention. The alien girl suddenly touched his shoulder. A simple gesture, but it carried a weight of understanding. She pointed to a maintenance shaft, a potential hidden escape route that Kai had initially overlooked. Their eyes met. In that moment, something changed. It wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was the beginning of something unexpected. With precision and speed, Kai moved through the maintenance shaft, the alien girl now alert and watching every movement. Her survival instincts were sharp, her spirit unbroken despite weeks of captivity. As they approached the transport vessel, Kai realized this rescue would change everything, not just for the alien girl, but for him as well. The first stage of an impossible journey had begun. The medical bay of Kai's transport vessel hummed with soft electronic sounds. Machines blinked and monitored the alien girl's vital signs. Her pale blue-gray skin looked even more fragile against the white medical bed. Kai watched her carefully. Her breathing was steady now, but her body showed signs of extensive trauma. Multiple small scars marked her arms, telling a silent story of survival. He had seen wounded soldiers before, but something about her vulnerability touched him differently. She stirred slightly, her eyes opening just a fraction. They were unique, a mix of silver and amber that seemed to change color with each movement. For a moment, they locked eyes. No words were needed. The medical computer translated her basic biological information. Her species was from a distant planet called Lyra Prime, known for its complex social structures and unfortunate history of being targeted by slave traders. Her age suggested she was young, barely an adult by her species standards. Kai prepared a nutrient solution, carefully, adjusting the mixture to match her biological requirements. His hands moved with practiced precision, a skill learned through years of military medical training. She watched him, not with fear anymore, but with careful curiosity. When he approached with the nutrition tube, she didn't resist. Her survival instincts were strong. "Drink," Kai said simply, using the universal translation device. The girl understood. Her thin fingers wrapped around the tube, pulling it closer. Her first attempt was weak, but she managed to take small sips of the nutritional liquid. Outside the medical bay, stars moved past the vessel's large observation window. They were traveling through a quiet sector of space, far from the mining facility where she was held captive. Safety for now was theirs. Kai noticed she had a small mark on her neck, a slave trader's identification tag. He would need to remove it carefully to prevent any tracking signals. His fingers moved close to the tag and she tensed automatically. "I'm helping you," he said softly. The translation device converted his words, but communication was still challenging. She understood basic concepts but struggled with complex language. Her responses were mostly body language and short, broken phrases. "Name?" she asked finally, her first clear word. "Kai," he responded. "And you?" She hesitated, then said, "Aria." The name felt right, simple, strong. Kai prepared a medical scanner to check her overall health. Each movement was slow, calculated to show he meant no harm. Aria watched every action, her eyes never leaving his hands. The scanner revealed multiple old injuries, broken bones that had healed incorrectly, nerve damage from repeated physical stress. Her body told a story of continuous survival against impossible odds. As hours passed, Aria became more comfortable. She moved around the medical bay, exploring carefully. Her movements were cautious but showed an incredible curiosity about her surroundings. Kai realized she knew nothing about human technology. Every machine, every button was a mystery to her. She would touch something, look at him, waiting for explanation or permission. He started explaining basic things, how the medical computer worked, what different buttons did. She listened intently, her eyes growing wider with each explanation. Their communication was a strange dance. Part translation device, part gestures, part mutual understanding. They were two beings from completely different worlds finding a way to connect. By the end of the first cycle, Aria had eaten, rested, and explored. Her strength was returning. The scared, chained girl from the mining facility was transforming. Slowly, carefully, she was becoming something else. A survivor. A potential ally. Maybe even a friend. Kai watched her sleep, wondering what strange journey they had just begun. The stars outside continued their silent movement, indifferent to the unlikely companionship forming inside the small vessel. Their story was just starting. Days passed on the transport vessel, a small world of metal and technology floating through the endless darkness of space. Kai and Aria settled into a careful routine, learning about each other with every passing moment. Communication remained a challenge. Aria's language was complex, filled with subtle hand movements and telepathic undertones that the translation device struggled to capture completely. Kai discovered that her people communicated not just through words but through an intricate dance of gestures and emotional signals. He began teaching her basic universal language. Simple words, basic concepts. Aria was a quick learner, her intelligence shining through her careful observations. She would repeat words, tilting her head slightly, her eyes changing color as she processed new information. One morning, Aria approached Kai with a series of hand movements. At first, he thought she was just practicing her gestures. But then he realized she was telling a story. Her hands painted pictures of her homeworld, a planet of crystal mountains and flowing rivers of liquid silver. She showed him how her people lived in complex community structures, how they valued collective survival over individual achievement. Her hands moved with a grace that spoke of deep cultural memories. Kai listened, fascinated. He realized this was more than just language learning. This was an exchange of worlds. In return, he showed her images of Earth. Green forests, massive cities, the blue oceans that covered most of his home planet. Arya's eyes widened with wonder. She touched the holographic projections, her fingers tracing the landscapes of a world she had never seen. Their learning wasn't just verbal. Kai taught Arya basic survival skills, how to read equipment, how to understand navigation systems. She was a quick study, her natural intelligence combining with an intense desire to learn. In return, Arya showed Kai subtle ways of sensing danger. Her species had developed incredible intuitive skills over thousands of years of survival. She could detect slight changes in air pressure, subtle vibrations that suggested potential threats. The transport vessel became their shared world, a small space of learning and discovery. One cycle, while Kai was checking the navigation system, Arya discovered the ship's small training area. She watched the holographic combat training programs with intense curiosity. Her body moved, mimicking the combat sequences almost unconsciously. Kai watched her, surprised. Her movements were natural, almost predatory. She wasn't just watching, she was learning. "Want to try?" he asked. Arya nodded. Her first real smile appeared, small but genuine. The training session was unlike anything Kai had expected. Arya's body moved with a fluid grace that combined her natural abilities with the combat techniques he demonstrated. She was quick, adaptable, with an instinctive understanding of movement and strategy. They practiced for hours. Sometimes he would show her a technique, and she would modify it, adding her own unique approach. It wasn't just training. It was a conversation without words. During mealtimes, they shared stories. Kai talked about his years in military service, the planets he had visited, the conflicts he had seen. Arya listened, her eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and concern. She shared fragments of her own history, the slave traders who had captured her, the multiple species she had encountered during her imprisonment. Her stories were not just words, but emotional landscapes that the translation device could only partially capture. Trust was building, slowly, carefully. They were no longer just rescuer and rescued. They were becoming something else. Partners, companions, two beings from different worlds, finding a connection in the vast, silent space between stars. As another cycle ended, Kai looked at Arya. She was studying the navigation charts, her fingers, tracing potential routes. Her body had changed. She was stronger now, more confident. Their journey was far from over. But something had changed. Understanding had emerged. The silence of space shattered without warning. Alarms screamed across the transport vessel's control system, red warning lights painting everything in an angry crimson glow. Kai's hand moved instantly to the weapon control. Years of military training kicked in, his body responding before his mind could fully process the threat. Arya was already moving, her body low and alert, eyes scanning the external sensors. 3 massive slave trader ships had emerged from hyperspace jump. Their hull designs were unmistakable, reinforced combat, vessels designed for capture and extraction. They had been tracking them since the mining facility rescue. "They found us," Kai muttered. Arya's hand touched the navigation console. Her fingers moved with surprising speed, revealing a skill Kai hadn't seen before. She was reading the incoming attack patterns, understanding their potential movement strategies. The first wave of laser fire erupted across the starscape. Kai's vessel wasn't a combat ship. It was a medical transport designed for rescue and medical support. Their defensive capabilities were minimal. "We need to jump," Kai said, preparing the hyperspace coordinates. Arya shook her head. Her gesture was clear. Jumping would reveal their exact location trajectory. The slave traders would follow. They needed a different strategy. She pointed to a nearby asteroid field. Her eyes changed color, a mix of silver and amber that seemed to calculate complex navigation paths in seconds. Kai understood immediately. The asteroid field would provide cover, potential escape routes. The first direct hit rocked the vessel. Electrical systems sparked, emergency protocols activated. Kai's hands moved across the control panel, rerouting, power, protecting critical systems. Arya was already preparing emergency survival gear. Her movements were precise, calculated. She was no longer just a rescued alien. She was a partner in survival. Another laser strike, this time closer. The vessel's outer hull groaned under the pressure. Kai knew they had minutes, not hours. "Can you pilot?" he asked Arya. She nodded. No hesitation. In that moment, everything changed. Kai took the weapons control. Arya's hands moved across the navigation system with a speed that surprised him. Her species' natural intuition combined with her recent training created something unexpected. They moved through the asteroid field like a dance. Each asteroid became a potential shield. Each movement was a calculated risk. The slave trader ships were larger, less maneuverable. They struggled to follow. Kai fired precise weapon bursts, not to destroy but to redirect, creating confusion, breaking their pursuit pattern. Arya's navigation made each movement unpredictable. One slave trader vessel crashed into a massive asteroid. Another got trapped in a gravitational pull. Their third pursuer continued the chase, more determined than ever. Damage warnings flashed across multiple systems. Their vessel was losing power. Critical systems were failing. They needed a final strategy. Arya touched Kai's hand, a simple gesture that carried complex information. Her species had a unique understanding of energy systems. She showed him a potential power redirection method, something completely outside standard human technology. Together, they implemented the strategy. Power rerouted, systems stabilized. The remaining slave trader vessel suddenly found its tracking systems confused. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, escape. Hours later, in the quiet of the medical bay, Kai looked at Arya. Her body showed signs of the intense battle, small cuts, areas of electrical burn. But her eyes were bright, alive. "We made it," Kai said simply. Arya's smile was something between a human grin and an alien expression of victory. They had done more than survive. They had become something more than rescuer and rescued. They had become survivors. Together, the stars outside continued their silent journey, indifferent to the battle that had just occurred. But inside the vessel, everything had changed. The medical bay hummed with soft recovery systems. Kai lay on a healing bed, his body slowly recovering from the intense battle. Arya stood nearby, her movements a careful mix of concern and protection. His injuries were serious but not critical. A laser strike had caught his shoulder during their escape from the slave traders. The medical system worked slowly, repairing damaged tissue and managing pain responses. Arya had refused to leave his side. Her dedication was more than gratitude. It was something deeper, a connection that went beyond rescue, beyond simple companionship. Days passed. Kai's strength returned gradually. Arya learned more about human medical technology, her fingers exploring the healing systems with intense curiosity. She would check monitors, adjust settings, her movements becoming more confident with each passing hour. The transport vessel drifted through a quiet sector of space. Their original mission was long forgotten. Now they were something else. Survivors. Partners. When Kai could finally sit up, Arya brought him nutrient solutions. Her hand movements were gentle, her eyes watching every small change in his condition. She had learned human care techniques, combining them with her own intuitive healing knowledge. "We need a plan," Kai said, breaking the silence. Arya understood. They couldn't return to her original homeworld. It was too dangerous. The slave traders would be hunting them. Her people might not accept her after her capture and rescue. She pulled up star charts, her fingers tracing potential routes. Her knowledge had expanded dramatically during their journey. What was once a frightened slave girl was now a strategic partner. Kai watched her, realizing how much she had changed. Her body was stronger, her mind sharper. The trauma of her past was becoming a source of strength, not weakness. They discussed options: a neutral colony, a research station, somewhere they could disappear, somewhere they could start over. The communication system interrupted their planning. An incoming message, encrypted but familiar, military communication codes. Someone was trying to contact Kai's original mission control. Arya tensed. Discovery could mean capture, separation. Kai's fingers moved carefully. He decoded the message, his military training allowing quick translation. It was a partial recall order, but something was different. The language suggested flexibility, understanding. Someone knew about their unique situation. Days turned into weeks. Their relationship evolved. Kai taught Arya advanced combat techniques. She taught him subtle communication methods from her species. They were becoming something new, something unexpected. A small research station appeared on their navigation charts, remote, isolated, perfect for two beings trying to find their place in a complex universe. As they approached, Arya prepared their cover story. Her language skills had improved dramatically. She could now create complex communication scenarios, understanding human bureaucratic systems with surprising speed. Kai was healing, not just physically, but mentally. The rescue that had begun as a simple mission had transformed into something much larger. A journey of understanding, of connection. The research station grew larger in their view screen, metallic, complex, promising. "Ready?" Kai asked. Arya's response was a subtle hand movement, part gesture, part smile, completely her own. Their approach was careful, calculated. They had survived slave traders, navigated impossible space battles, created a connection that crossed species boundaries. A new horizon awaited. As the transport vessel began its docking sequence, both Kai and Arya knew their real journey was just beginning. They were no longer just rescuer and rescued. They were something else. Partners. Survivors. A team. The station's docking lights welcomed them. Somewhere between the stars, between two impossible worlds, they had found each other, and nothing would ever be the same.